So now that we've constructed the lines for our axonometric drawing, what I'm going to do is show how to export basic shade and shadow using just some internal screenshot methods within Rhino. So the first thing I'm going to do is just hide all of the curves that I had. I'm going to change all of these back to the default layer just so they have the same properties. And I'm going to go into our options. So the first thing we're going to do is just change the color of our background. So if you see in the appearance panel over here on the left side, if we go to colors, we can change our background to white. You can change this to whatever color you want. White, I just feel like, is the most typical for what you would export to a drawing if you're going to underlay it underneath a vector. The next thing we're going to do is try to get rid of all of these grid lines in the back. So if you type grid, you can see a bunch of options pop up on the top. So if we go to show grid, no, show grid axes, no, and show world axes, that'll turn off this little guy in the bottom. So now we actually have a clean environment that we can start to work in for our screenshots. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to change some basic settings for different views. So if we turn to our ghosted view here and we go into options, on the bottom underneath view, if you go to display modes and click ghosted, that'll be basically the mode that we're already in. We can change a bunch of these options. So here you can change your edge thickness, which will actually turn up and down the sort of stroke on those lines. And up here we can change the transparency. So if we make this more transparent, you would basically start to get a much more see-through object, and obviously the less this number is, the less transparent those objects are going to be. So you can mess around with a lot of these settings. There's a lot of things you can change within these views. That's just two of them, but for the sake of what we're doing, that's all I'm going to show for now. So if you click OK, the view that I'm actually going to use to take the screenshot is going to be my rendered view. So if I click rendered, you can see that my objects are only showing shading on certain parts of them. So if I go back again into my options and I go into rendered, I can increase my edge thickness. I'm in my rendered, I can increase my edge thickness, and that'll actually allow my objects to have an edge when I go to export them. It's important that they have an edge because obviously, like you saw, without the edge it's going to be impossible to line up that edge with my vector file. So the last thing I'm going to do is just put a surface in here. So I want to put a surface on the bottom of them, and what that will do is allow us to have some shading that happens behind our objects. Another option that we can do is if we want sort of one of these objects to stand out, we can actually change the display mode of just individual objects. So if we go to set object display mode, you can click mode up here and we can change just this one into ghosted. So you can see then these will actually register as something different, and then this will register as a ghosted object. This is nice if you're trying to just set up objects slightly differently in your scene. In this case, if I go into my options and I go into ghosted, I'm actually going to increase the transparency of this guy. So now you can see that this is actually a much different sort of look than what you're getting with these objects. So here I'm going to take a screenshot of this. So if you go to view capture to file, you're going to get a dialog box that opens up like this. So again, it's similar to the Make 2D menu. It's going to ask you here what view you want to use. So we're going to use our top view. Options, we don't want any of these. Transparent background you can use, but I find that it comes out a little bit, the lines are not as crisp if you do that, so I probably wouldn't. Resolution viewport will just basically take a box that's at the same proportions of your viewport, so I usually leave that alone. And then the scale, so it'll take an image that size, and then this will actually increase the pixel count proportionally. So if you want that image to be 2, 3, 4 times the size so that you're getting a really, really crisp image, you can change all of those options. So here what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just click OK. It's going to ask us where we want to save this. So we'll just do media test 1. And this will take a second to save. Alright, file successfully saved. So now we have all of the components that we need for our drawing within Illustrator. So the next tutorial will go over how to overlay and import these at a certain scale.